Will software testing evolve or go into hiding? Hi, I'm Jason English, Director and Principal Analyst at Intellyx BV, an analyst firm that covers digital transformation. Now, that's obviously a pretty broad term, but one thing is certain. There's almost no way to digitally transform without developing and delivering some software. And you can't do that successfully without testing. I've spent most of my life working with technology firms where testing was an unassailable virtue, and I started at one of the first startups to do real middle-tier Java and web services testing at ITKO, and we later got to invent service virtualization to address the constraints of unavailable testing environments. You can still find that book we wrote, Service Virtualization, Reality is Overrated, out there somewhere, which we put out immediately after getting acquired by CA. For most of modern industrial history, the concept of quality was at the top of mind for executives in almost all industries, where making a better product trumped short-term cost-cutting measures and efficiencies. Take, for instance, Boeing, a company built on a reputation of quality, where no plane went out the door until every engineer could sign off on it. Wait a minute. Once the company merged and everything was financialized into cost-cutting measures to help drive stock prices, this sort of thing happens at lots of product companies. When it's all about the bottom line, doing adequate testing itself can become too much hassle or too much pressure. We're facing a similar situation with software testing. Remember when there was an actual QA team separate from development who actually tested software applications, and they had the power to hold up releases if something went wrong? Some companies even had a tester on every small team because failure in production was not an option. This gave rise to pair programming, test-driven development, user acceptance testing labs. To stick with the aerospace theme, NASA was famous for testing their software requirements before design even happened. Unfortunately, the balance of power didn't play itself out very well for the QA team. Once being first to market trumped everything else, the QA team faced ever-shortening test windows and retained little authority to stop the presses for quality issues that act as an inhibitor of change. Many companies abandoned QA teams altogether in favor of mingling testing and development. Who wants to be the buzzkill that stopped the killer software release that customers expected? We somehow missed the agile with a capital A methodology of testing first, and thinking of agile with a small a as simply delivering more features faster. Like Facebook, move fast and break things. Because this kind of agility is constrained by time and resources, testing becomes the first casualty. Today, hybrid software delivery organizations are experiencing the phenomenon of hidden software testing, where testing activities are still going on, even if sometimes understaffed and unappreciated. Let's play hide and seek, won't we? Let's see where we can find testing is still happening inside these organizations. So, where is testing hiding now? Hiding spot number 1. Cybersecurity. When DevOps started to appear on the scene more than a decade ago, there was a brief glimmer of hope that we'd call it DevTestOps and put testers on even footing with developers and operators. But this is where practitioners of cybersecurity put their foot down, as they are also an all too often overlooked obstacle of the SDLC, so that if a middle name for DevOps is used now, it's DevSecOps. Still, if security is prioritized, that's a good thing, because it also moves risk to the forefront. Just like testing teams, security teams are also challenged to quantify the value of their work in doing their threat hunting and pen testing, but they can quantify the cost of a successful cyber attack and therefore the risk. Depending on who you ask, a successful attack or data breach could cost an organization between $4 million up to more than $9 million for larger enterprises. Smart IT executives will see parallels between cybersecurity risk and software risk in general. After all, whether a failure is caused by a hacker or a neglectful developer or an unexpected change, that's still a problem. So, we are seeing DevSecOps organizations prioritizing their efforts according to risk-based testing approaches, and the whole team can get behind that. When exploratory testing and security validation are combined, we'll soon realize we're all on the same team. Hiding spot number 2, new roles. Which leads me to hiding the role of testing. Who owns testing anyway? Testing has gotten a bad rap as a role suited for less technical people who wouldn't be good developers. But in reality, comparing the specific roles of developers and testers would be like comparing movie cinematographers to editors. Like Liam Neeson, testers have a very specific set of skills for finding flaws in software and for looking at software from the user's perspective. Companies that break up QA or underinvest in testers always end up shifting the burden of testing elsewhere, a phenomenon that creates hidden test factories of people attempting to remediate broken systems and repair faulty or missing data generated by such systems in production. The sunset of the QA team also means that we don't have a head of QA anymore. But I'm always here to volunteer as a head of QA for a barbecue joint or a brewery if anybody's volunteering. We also saw titles containing QA specialist or tester becoming scarce about a decade ago. In an agile or DevOps world, the testing function is increasingly integrated into pair programming or smaller agile team exercises. Testers are becoming co-located with developers or working in sync on each release if remote. Some companies encourage more performance testing, which is sorely needed, and earlier functional testing on the part of engineers, eventually leading to the rise of the SDET, or Software Development Engineer in Test, a cross-functional role. In general, I would say having developers test and care about quality is a good thing. However, testing is still a unique and separate discipline from development. If developers must test their own code and testers must become developers, who should independently validate that the software meets business requirements? Hiding spot number 3. Different names for testing tools. Having worked as a vendor within software testing, I can tell you that as a space, it has been cooling down for quite a while, at least in terms of public media hype, as well as venture capital interest and buzz. But at the same time, testing still occupies a third or more of the software delivery org's time. Even if you don't test up front or adopt advanced testing tools, you'll still end up testing even more later in debugging efforts. The grand age of automated testing tools has subsided. Better specialized tools for endpoint testing, code coverage, and service testing, and then open source software took over for the huge enterprise licenses sold by the likes of Mercury and Rational and Segway back when Y2K testing was still a real problem to solve. Innovative testing vendors started testing behind the UI and beyond simply unit testing code to test integration layers, service calls, and APIs, and the performance of databases and network connections. Testing tools became sophisticated enough to eliminate dependency constraints with service virtualization and become invoked within the flow of a complete software delivery pipeline. Existing APM monitoring tools and old load testing tools also gave way to more sophisticated production engineering tools. Now we can shift right testing with observability, watching how systems behave in production, or ideally pre-production, to determine how to make faster adjustments to the software and its underlying architecture. It seems no matter how much we try testing earlier in the software lifecycle with greater automation, there will always be too much change and complexity to prevent all defects from escaping into production, especially when the ever-changing software is likely executing on ephemeral cloud microservices and depending on calls to disparate APIs. They can hide shift-right testing under other practices, progressive delivery, canary releases, blue-green deployments, feature flagging, real user monitoring, and even some observability, chaos engineering, and fast issue resolution workflows. All of these were once trial and error efforts that advanced teams could now automate to improve quality and performance nearer to production and even post-delivery. So at this point, we started to approach software observability as the hot new space, and then again, testing lost its shine. Gartner even discontinued the continuous testing Magic Quadrant as a product category altogether. So how can a software industry survive without a Magic Quadrant to rank the vendors? Hiding spot number 4, automation. I've given a lot of talks on process automation, low-code app design platforms, web app and mobile app builders, and the like. There's an interesting trend where the best testing startups migrate into related automation spaces because, in a sense, automated testing tools that could dynamically invoke interfaces and APIs could actually execute a business process as well. We've seen testing become part of the validation process of digital process automation, or DPA. Then robotic process automation, RPA, came along. That became all the rage for a while with vendors like Automation Anywhere and UiPath. Test automation can certainly replay user actions with some dynamic variables, so why not have it automate user actions and do the actual work? Other testing vendors started moving into adjacent spaces like continuous process optimization and even low-code app creation, basically using the testing interface as a WYSIWYG editor. From there, we continued to advance with automation, moving into synthetic traffic generation, data virtualization, virtually anything a testing team would have needed to build or generate manually in the old days, you could automate to eliminate the constraints of validating real-world production systems. Other testing vendors started to fork and evolve away from the core of testing itself to do powerful test data curation, test data set creation, and simulation capabilities. To me, it's still automated testing. Hiding spot number 5, artificial intelligence. Thanks to large language models like ChatGPT and funky image creators that generated some of my bad art for this presentation, generative AI is all the rage right now, and it's hiding testing. Every enterprise is trying out some sort of exploratory AI initiative within their application stacks, whether that is a customer service chatbot or a fill-in-the-blanks form automation feature. What's cool here is that we have had various forms of applied AI helping out with testing for quite a while. What were once dumb UI tests that would break the moment anything changed in the app have become smarter UI tests with intelligent recognition of user inputs and data responses. AI development tools that provide code co-piloting and code conversion are also being used to conduct inline AI testing to accompany development, sometimes right inside the IDE. Generative AI is just starting to live up to expectations, driving intelligent test creation capabilities from observed traffic and automated regression, integration, and performance tests, with alerting to SREs or ops teams in their platforms of choice. We'll even someday generate whole test environments and model deployments through AI intervention. It will seem like a different world in some ways, but in the end, LLMs can still hallucinate and fabricate results, and no AI will have the empirical sense to understand how the software world bridges the real world or impacts the perception of human users. True, AI will take a lot of the toil out of testing and development. It may even automate 99% of the testing work that we do today, freeing up dev and test teams to move their attention to new features and even better user experiences. No more hiding. People are still writing and running tests. No matter how the titles and technologies change, we will still need to test. And even in an AI-driven world, we still need testers. Every tester I've ever met, they're the coolest people. They're generally humble, easygoing, but totally obsessed about making software the best it can be for users. They're like the bass players of the software world. I'm a bass player, and I hardly ever meet an uncool bass player. Even virtuoso bassists don't usually get any glory in the band, but without someone setting the groove, the music totally sucks. So, go forth and test, my testing friends, and take us to new heights of quality and customer experience. Thanks for joining me on this session today, and enjoy the rest of the event.